Hi there, it's your girl Simone. I thought I'd stop by to tell you about Transformational Chat. That's coming up this Sunday at 5 p.m. That's May 30th at 5 p.m. on Zoom and on YouTube Live. We are going to be talking everything forgiveness. Guess what, guys? If you missed the first one, you know how much fun we're going to be having. I'm going to have with me Mikkel Blackwood, Sally and Gray, Natasha Wright, and Beverly Walters. My MC or my cheerleader is going to be Latoya Smith, guys. You got to make sure you are there. Struggling with forgiveness? Do you have questions on forgiveness? Drop them down in the chat. Reach out to me, reach out to my guests. We can't wait to see you on Transformational Chat with Simone Stewart and friends. See you there.
This season of Uniquely Me is sponsored by Design Hub for all your printing and publishing needs. Woman's Touch, the healthiest pad in any aisle. Earth Elements, nourishing body, mind, and spirit. All natural, organic skin, hair, and body care supply store. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Uniquely Me with Simone Stewart. Guys, this is season 4 and I am so excited. You know what? I'm recognizing that Uniquely Me is growing. Finally, in this season, thanks to COVID-19 and new doors opening, we've been able to incorporate other women on the show, not just local, but women from all over the world. Their stories for sure is just as riveting, nail-biting, tear-jerking, and of course, it causes you to pause for a praiseworthy moment. But guys, before getting to all of that, are you subscribed? Have you subscribed as yet? You need to go stop, pause, hit that notification bell and the subscribe button. Have you done it? All right, good. Now we're settled. All right. So this week I have a guest for you, a Jamaican, of course, but living overseas. And she's going to share her story with us. I tell you, I had a talk with this woman and for days, her story continued to play over in my head, you know, and we asked the question, why do women stay in certain relationship? But you are going to understand from this woman that there are layers to why we women stay in certain circumstances, even sometimes to the point of death. But of course, I don't want to tell you the story. I'm going to let her tell you her story. So go get your juice and come back, get your popcorn, get your pillows. And guys, by the way, are you loving my pillows? Yes, I got my Uniquely Me pillows. So get your pillows, guys, and come back. We're going to hear another interesting, unique story.
Uniquely Me is uniquely you. Balancing the different hats of life, achieving all your goals in the name of Christ. Uniquely Me is uniquely you. You can do anything. With the S on your chest, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. You are a winner and you're an overcomer. You can be all things to Christ who gives you strength. Yeah, you are a fighter. You're so determined. Uniquely Me is uniquely you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Welcome to season 4 of another episode of Uniquely Me with Simone Stewart. Let me jump right into it and introduce my guest, Stacey Harvey. Stacey, welcome.
How you doing, woman of God? It's an honor and privilege to be here on your platform.
Thank you
for inviting me.
I feel honored, honey. I feel far more honored in having spoken to you and getting a chance to create this platform to share your story. I'm honored and humbled by it. So, Stacey, we want to jump right in and just share with persons, who is Stacey? Tell us 3 things that describe you.
Well, 3 things that describe me. I'm uniquely me.
Yes.
Uniquely me. I'm created in the image and likeness of Christ. Stacey is a entrepreneur. She's a mother of 3, and she put God's first in all things.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Stacey, we're going to jump right into it. Your story, you left Jamaica at what, age 16? Was it 16 or earlier?
No, at age 8.
Oh, 8, right. You left Jamaica at age 8. What was life like, growing up overseas, for want of a better word?
So when I first came to America, it was more for a better life. Growing up in Jamaica, I was close to my grandmother. I was basically a grandmother's girl. Before I even came to America, I was a young entrepreneur at the age of 7 years old. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to help my mom. And one day I decided to ask my mom if I can go to if I can go to get a job to help her to pay the bills, so she would laugh. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, no, I'm serious. But you us looking at our children, you're like, wait a minute, she's 7 years old, like
Sure.
how can I send my little 7-year-old out there? But my mom laughed. But I went to the little shopping center and asked everybody if I can work for them, and everyone laughed at me. But there was one little shop, this little pastry shop in Harborview. They gave me an opportunity, and I told the lady that, I really want to help my mom. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, just because you want to help your mom, I'm going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and do it. And at the age of 7, I
Mm-hmm.
began to work in this little pastry shop.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it started off. And my father and mother decided for me to migrate for a better life to America.
Yeah.
I knew my father, but I was afraid of him.
Yeah.
I
Why? Why?
I don't know. I was scared of him because he wasn't in the home. But
Ah.
my mom always kept me around him, always took me around his family and stuff like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
was always afraid of him. He
Yeah.
would come around and I would be more closer to his brothers and his aunt, his sisters and siblings, and
Mm-hmm.
not him.
Yeah.
But we ended up, me, my father, and my younger brother ended up migrating. I didn't know my little brother. I didn't know my father. So I basically came to a strange land with these two strangers, plus
People.
a strange land that I don't even know anyone. I had to
Mm-hmm.
get to adjust myself to get to know them.
Yeah.
And as time progressed, after me crying and stuff like that, because I was closer to my mom and my family on my mother's side, I began to adjust and so forth.
Yeah.
Um,
Did your
um,
mom migrate with you, or she stayed here in Jamaica?
No, my mom stayed here, but as when I got older, I filed for my mom and brought her here. You know,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So
But
life took a turn. Living with your, so you were there with your dad and stuff, but
yeah,
somehow life took a turn and you had to move out. Do you remember what age that was?
so I was at the age of 16. I had to
Mm-hmm.
move out of my father's home. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with me and my stepmother got into an altercation. We got into a fight, and
Yeah.
she decided that she didn't want me in the home
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And my father pretty much had to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I ended up being homeless at the age of 16, being put out of my father's house. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up staying with some school friends, which those were the only people that I really knew was my family here
Right.
and school friends. They ended up taking me in.
Yeah.
And before they ended up taking me in, it's so funny how, sometimes we don't know how life will present itself, but God always he always have a plan for
Mm-hmm.
us. And it so happened that this school friend on this particular day when I was being put out, she came into my neighborhood, and I've never seen my friend come into the neighborhood. We always see each other at school. And this particular day, she came and sat on the wall
Yeah.
and put her arms around me and was like, I was telling her what was happening. She was like, don't worry about it. You could come to my house. And I was crying, like, where am I going? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know where I'm going. So she said, just come to my home. My sister is having a party for her 1-year-old daughter. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was over there, I was there for like a week, and time progressed. Her aunt began to say, when is Stacy going home?
Yeah.
And she would try to comfort me to say, don't worry about that. Cause I was like, I have to go, but I don't know where I'm gonna go. She
Mm-hmm.
she kept comforting me and was like, don't you worry, everything is all good.
Yeah.
So it happened that there was a day whereas I went downstairs to wash some clothes in her home.
Right.
The uncle was downstairs in the basement, and as I was coming back up the steps, he was watching TV, and he called me. And I said, give me a minute, I'll be back. And he was like, come here.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was going up the steps, he was at the bottom of the steps. He grabbed onto my foot and was
Mm-hmm.
pulling me under him to rape me.
Yeah.
And I kicked him in his groin and ran upstairs. And he began to, when he came upstairs, he began to search the rooms for me. And
Right.
it was only, it was the aunt and the mom was in the home at that time.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends, she went downstairs to fix her bottle for her baby, because she had just had a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
At first I was in one of the girls' room, and I ran from there and ran into her room under the bed. And the minute I ran under the bed, he came into that very room in the closet where I was in. And I
Mm-hmm.
was underneath the bed shaking like a leaf. He
Mm-hmm.
came, as he was coming into the room, she came into the room and said, "What are you doing in my room?" So he backed off and was like, "Nothing." And that's how I ended up staying there. She ran into her mom's room and told her mom that her brother tried to rape me in the basement. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "Stacy cannot stay here. I'm leaving." So
Mm-hmm.
so happened that the mom was like, "Okay." But 3 months later, the same person which tried to rape me raped a 9-year-old and ended up
Whoa.
getting locked up. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's what made me was able to stay there. That's how the aunt allowed me to stay there. But after high school, the aunt said everybody had to leave.
Believe. So for those who are just tuning in, this is Stacey and Harvey. I'm a Jamaican living overseas and sharing. I mean, Stacey, as I listen to you, you're sharing the story of so many that I've heard. Meaning that there are a lot of our children leave Jamaica, and it is said that they're leaving for better. And initially, it seems like everything is okay until we keep hearing these stories that they're out on the street, one way or the other, they get into a fight with their stepmother and stuff. And I've always wondered what happens in the minds of our parents and loved ones who, initially wanted us there so much. Why make a decision to put us out on the street? Because they know you don't have anywhere else to go, you know? But let's continue with your story. So you finished high school. That's a good part.
Yes,
And but you found love.
I finished high school, and I ended up still being homeless, living on sleeping on people's floors. But
Yeah.
I found love, and this guy who I thought was my world,
Yeah.
I thought he was my best friend and my everything.
Mm-hmm.
When you meet someone, it's like you're so much head over heels for them, and you think that they can do no wrong and nothing like that. It so
Yeah.
happened that me and him end up going through a loss of a friend, that got killed in his home. His best friend got killed, which drew our relationship even closer.
Yeah.
He ended up going to Jamaica and burying the best friend. And I ended up going back into my father's home temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
because I was living with some friends, but it was just a minor altercation. I ended up like being caught up in debt because of the friend,
Yeah.
me putting stuff on my credit and so forth. So I ended up going back to my father's house, in which the stepmother really didn't want me there, and I ended up having to leave out again.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily or intentional for me to end up being in a relationship or living with this person. So it happened that I was pushed into me having to shack up and living with this person. You
Mm-hmm.
While we were living together, I was 3 months pregnant. Well, for the first 2 years, everything was great. You
Yeah.
know, he was like my freak to my frat. You couldn't see one without the other. Like you couldn't see him without me. We were like inseparable.
Right.
You couldn't tell me anything about this person. You couldn't tell me that he would have did anything wrong to me or anything like that. If anybody was to come to me and say that, I would be like, that's a lie. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I ended up living with him, and I became 3 months pregnant. And when I was 3 months pregnant, it so happened that I was in the house cleaning up the house, and he was in the shower, and
Mm-hmm.
someone had called the phone. A
Right.
young lady had called the phone. And when she called the phone, she decided that she would like to speak to him, but he was in the shower. So I said, well, can I take a message? She's in the shower. She said, well, I'm his woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the phone, And she began to go off like cussing and carrying on. I moved the phone from my ear because I'm like, I don't need to have a conversation with you. I need to have a conversation with him because me and him live together. You
Yeah.
know, as I was going to the bathroom, he was coming out the shower, and I backed off and came back in the room. And I
Mm-hmm.
had the phone in my hand, and I said, "Who is this person?" He grabbed the phone out of my hand, smashed it on the floor, and started beating me as if I was a dude. He
Mm-hmm.
started kicking me in my stomach. I'm 3 months pregnant with his unborn child. He
Right.
started kicking me in my stomach, dragging me all around the room, um, punching me all over my body, and he just left me on the floor like I was a rag dog. He spat on me and was like, "You dumb bee," and started calling me out of my name. Put on his clothes and he left the house.
Let me
And
ask you something, Stacey, because it seemed as if it just seemed to just happen suddenly. Prior to that, did you ever see any such sign? Did he ever do any such thing to you?
no, he never did no such thing to me at all.
What came to your mind when he left you? Because sure enough, you would have been on the floor, you would have been a hot mess. What came to your mind when that happened?
What came to my mind was like, this is a dream or a nightmare that I need to wake up out of. Like, this is not real. Like, I've never seen this person do this before. I've never seen him in any type of any situation like that. You know, I would hear him and his baby mom always argue and fuss, but that's none of my business. But he's never disrespected me or treated me any kind of way like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I literally laid there on the ground like, this is a dream, like I need to wake up out of. And
Mm-hmm.
I literally like slapped myself like, this is not real.
Yeah.
Because it really wasn't real to me. Because how do you how do you have this person to say that this is my best friend, to just turning around to somebody just being like like lashing out on you like really violently, and you're carrying this unborn child at
Right.
that. So I was lost for words. I began to bawl my eyes out. And
Mm.
when I really saw that it was real, because I laid there for a good 45 minutes to an hour before I even got off the ground.
Yeah.
And I went and picked up the phone and called my friend, and I told her what happened. And she
Yeah.
was like, you can come to my house and you can stay there, for as long as you would like.
Mm-hmm.
After me being there for 4 days and bawling my eyes out, I was like, no, I just need to go home and get some clothes and then come back, just to recoup. As I was going to her room to tell her, I'm just going to go home and get some clothes and come back,
Mm-hmm.
she was on the phone with somebody else, and laughed. They were talking about me and my situation, and they began to laugh at me as if it was a joke. I was like, some friend you are, because I could have lost my life. I could
Yeah.
have lost my unborn child. And you're sitting here laughing and mocking me as this is something, is a joke, and it's not a joke.
Yeah.
You know, I was so hurt and so broken. I ended up going home
Yeah.
into that relationship and staying there, because I'm like, now I don't have any family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any friend, because this friend was um, one of the family members which I was staying with. This was a sister of theirs.
Yeah.
So I was staying, with them, with her family.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any friends. I don't have even family. And I was just like, I just felt like just like lifeless, worthless. I just felt like I just felt like I was put out of my father's house all over again.
And so let me ask you something, Stacey. When you came back home, matter of fact, did he look for you in those 4 days while you were out?
No, he didn't look for me at all.
And did he ever apologize for starters, especially when you got back home?
He never apologized. He never
Okay.
apologized. He came, he wasn't even home. So he stayed out for like a couple of days. So he never came back home to the house. He
Mm-hmm.
came home when I was there like a week after.
Yeah.
So it looked like he was gone for like 2 weeks or so.
Right.
I left for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, he didn't come back to the house.
So you're back home and so is he. Did life continue or did it get worse as it relates to the abuse?
So you know how they would try to, butter you up and try to say sorry in their way, but not say sorry. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Try to act like it's good, but your words never said that. His actions begin to it got worse. It did not get better because to me, I think that his thought was, well, she came back, so obviously whatever she get, that's what it is. You
Mm.
know, it's like he just turned into a monster. He turned into somebody totally different, and
Did,
day in and day out, it was not nice.
did you ever tried asking him, what happened? Why have you slipped into this person that I don't know?
Yes, I asked him like when I was really over with the relationship. I sat him down one day and asked him, "Why did you put your hands on me?" And his thing was, "I saw my father put his hands on my mom, and that was the reason as to why he did that." And
Wow.
in the back of my head, it was like, if you saw your father doing that to your mom, you should have been more wanting to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that it was more of he got caught into something that he was hiding,
Mm-hmm.
which was another relationship on the side.
Yeah.
And you didn't know how to really, tell me. So
Mm.
basically, your way of telling me, you just lashed out on me, which that's not a good way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what he said. His father was abusing his mom.
Right. When we were talking, Stacy, you shared a couple instances of the abuse. And there was this time when you woke up, you were gun butted by him. Do you remember what led to that and, you passing out and the whole works?
So this particular day was on the 4th of July. I had planned with one of his friends that I was going to the fireworks with me and my daughter because I had my daughter. I was going to the fireworks, and normally what he will do, he would like if he plans to stay out late, he would just start an unnecessary argument with me for no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those unnecessary argument for no reason at all, because he wants to stay out of the home with his women so he don't have to say anything. So if me and you get into an argument, you would just leave 2 and 3 days at a time and just be like, whatever. But that's really not your, intention. Your intention is to be there with another woman. It so happened that me and him got into an argument unnecessarily. Uh, I don't even know how the argument even started. It was just foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
And he began to argue with me. He backed me up in the bathroom and began to argue and fuss with me. And as we began to argue and fuss, he had his gun in his waist and he hit me. He took his gun out and he hit me in my head. And I fell on the concrete floor, like my head hit the concrete floor. And when I woke up, I was knocked out unconsciously on the bathroom floor. Basically, we were fighting in the bathroom, and I ended up when he hit me with the gun, I thought I was dead because I saw like white as my head like hit the bathroom floor. I fell on the floor, and when I woke up, he was gone. He left the house. I woke up in a pool of blood, my own blood, and my
Yeah.
tooth was missing.
Yeah.
And um the girl kept calling my phone. My daughter was in the room, but it so happened like you must have put her in the crib. And my daughter was in the room, and she kept calling the phone, but I would not answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened that she ended up coming over to the house.
That's your
And
friend that you were supposed to be going out with.
yes, I was supposed to go out with her, but she kept calling the phone, and she saw that I didn't answer the phone. So she know that that's not really me. So it so happened that she ended up driving to the house. When she got to the house, it was knocking on the door. She saw my vehicle was there, but I wasn't answering the door, and the whole house was black. So
Mm-hmm.
she was like, something ain't right. So she kept on beating on the door like she was a police officer, till finally I opened the door, and like inside of the house was dark. And she turned on the light, was like, what's going on? She saw me with two black eyes, and my face was so swollen, and my tooth was missing. She called him and was like, what is going on? Because she never seen anything like that. And she was like, what's going on? And I told her what happened. She called him, And she began to go off on him and began to scream and cuss him out and was like, what's going on? And he tried to downplay the situation and was like, oh, me and her got into a minor altercation. She said, minor altercation. This girl got two black eyes, busted lips, and her tooth is missing. What are you saying? Like, and you gun butted her and hit her in the head, and there's a pool of blood upstairs in the bathroom. So you're telling me that this is a minor altercation? And he tried to downplay the situation. Like I said, he didn't come to the house till 3 days later.
So you stayed
Yes.
and you recovered from that, and the relationship continued.
Yes.
I asked you, it's a question I asked because I don't think, and I'm sure all persons watching this now, they're all asking the same question. Why did you not leave at this point? Why did you not leave? Is it that you had expected him to leave him, as in when he left the house to not return? Or what? Why did you stay?
My staying was financially. I didn't have any financial help, but he was the financial help. I
Yeah.
was working, both of us was working together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was working before I even had my daughter and my son. I was working,
Mm-hmm.
and when I ended up having my daughter, I was working at NIH, and we would take care of the animals. And in this particular field, we would try to find cures for diseases, for like different diseases like cancer, stuff like that,
Yeah.
AIDS and stuff like that. But working in that facility, I would get sick all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
the doctor ended up releasing me from the job because I couldn't work anymore. With
Mm-hmm.
me pregnant, I was getting sick, and the smell, as a pregnant woman, the smell wouldn't do me any justice.
Yeah.
So that's where I had ended up losing my job. And when I went home and told him that, my doctor wrote a note for me to not be there anymore,
Mm-hmm.
he was upset at first. But then because he know he was financially taking care of me, he
Mm-hmm.
was calling all the shots.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any finances.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
that
so, so
was,
there came this day, another incident that you reported, that you shared with me, that I think you had just come in from church,
yeah.
and he accosted you the moment you entered the door. Do you remember that incident that left you naked on the outside? Do you want to share on it?
Yeah. So, my background was always faith. I grew up in church. You know, um, I came home with my daughter one particular day, on a Sunday, and um, we began to take off our clothes and stuff like that. I fed the baby and put her down. And as I was in the room about to put on my clothes, he stepped to me and was like, I don't know what was going on with him, but he just started arguing and was like, why don't you call on the God that you serve?
Yeah.
Because he see me go to church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask him to come to church, but he would never come. And I don't know if the devil stepped into him or what, but this particular day, he was like, why don't you call on the God that you serve? Let me see if God can save you. And I'm looking at him like, is this man for real? So
Mm-hmm.
he said, let me see if the God can save you. But when he was saying it, I'm like, what are you talking about? Let me see if God can save you.
Mm-hmm.
But then he hit me. And as he was hitting me, he began to say, let me see if God can save you.
Yeah.
As he was beating me up and I was like blocking myself, he said, let me see if God can save you. I'm going to show you that the God that you serve cannot save you, as he was beating me up.
Yeah.
And he said, I want everybody in the community to know that the God that you serve don't exist.
Oh my
And
God.
he beat me up, bloody and all. And I was like half naked. And he pushed me out the door and locked his door.
Yeah.
And we had a Range Rover truck, and in the back of the truck, one of the doors wasn't working, so you can get in and out of the truck. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up, it wasn't a lot of people outside, and when he pushed me outside, I ran into the truck because the truck was parked in front of the house.
Yeah.
And I ran into the truck and I went into the back of the truck and I began to bawl my eyes out. And I said, God, did you hear what this man is saying? He said that you don't exist. You're
Yeah.
not God. Who are you? And I begin to bawl my eyes out till I literally cry myself to sleep
Yeah.
in the back of the truck. And he came, in the truck, and he opened up the door and said, "Get out of my truck, you dirty bee."
Yeah.
And he began to call me out of my name and said, "Go clean up yourself." And
Mm-hmm.
I went into the house and cleaned up myself, and I just went to sleep.
Ah. Yet still, Stacy, you're still there. You're
Yes.
still there. And by this time, was this when you found out you were pregnant a second time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened? How was life? You know, at this point, one would think that there should be some changes now. You stayed, yeah, but you're pregnant again. You know, did life get any better or did it get worse?
Life didn't get any better. It got worse. Um, this time I found out that I was pregnant, which I did not even know that I was pregnant
Yeah.
because I wanted out of the relationship. Even my brother came to take me out of the relationship one day. He beat me up so badly. And my brother came and said, "If you put your hands on my sister again, I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah.
I ended up, I ended up going back into the relationship because his mom was in the house. When my brother would go to work, his mom began to throw her words at me. She began to taunt me. She began to say malicious things. But
It's your brother's mother.
my brother's mom,
Yeah.
she began to say like negative words. And it cut me so badly, like it cut me to the core. I felt like I was like the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was nothing. And I ended up going back into the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That happened. Me and my brother ended up not having no relationship after that because he felt like, if you can go back into the relationship, I guess that you wanted it. But it
Yeah.
wasn't so, because he didn't see what his mom was doing when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was years after I came out of the relationship was when I told my brother what his mom was doing.
Yeah.
And, I ended up getting pregnant yet again. Didn't
Yeah.
even know that I was pregnant.
Right.
Um, when I got pregnant, it was a friend of mine that was saying, "You're really snappy.
Mm.
Why don't you go get checked? Because you must be pregnant or something." But I was like, "I don't think so." And I ended up going just to go for, just because he said so. And I ended up going to my doctor's appointment. And my doctor said, "You're pregnant." And I said, "It can't be." When he took me to get an ultrasound, I literally almost fell off the bed. And I was like, "I can't be pregnant," because I was literally on my menstrual all the time. So I'm not thinking that I'm pregnant. So I ended up being pregnant. And this particular day, I had told him that, I was pregnant. He wanted me to go out of town with him,
Mm-hmm.
go out of town. And he was taking as he was taking me to the airport. As he was taking me to the airport, it so happened that I didn't really understand the voice of the Lord at first. But then I heard this voice say, "Do not get on that flight. If you get on that flight, that's going to be your last time." And I began to rub my ears like I'm ignoring it, but I heard it like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What is this?" And the third time when I heard it, he's I didn't know what to say to him, because I'm like, you can't really say too much to this person because they're just hothead. So I said, I'm not going anymore. And he said, "What did you say?" I said, I'm not getting on the flight. I'm not going anywhere. And he said, "What you mean you're not going?" I said, "I'm not going anywhere." He got angry and we literally started fighting in the car
Mm-hmm.
as he's driving.
Yeah.
And we literally began to fight in the car. And it so happened that he pushed me out of the moving vehicle, and I'm 3 months pregnant with my son this time.
Yeah.
Pushed me out of the moving vehicle, and fell on the side of the road, bruised up,
Oh,
bloody, all.
hold on. You, the car is moving
Car is moving.
and he pushed you out of the vehicle.
Yes.
You're pregnant. Let's get that in. You're pregnant and he pushed you out of the vehicle.
Yes. 3 months pregnant again. And he pushed me out of the vehicle and drove off.
What did you do?
I ended up on the side, like in some bushes, and I got up and dust myself off, and like one of my shoes was missing, and I was walking like bloody. Um, I had walked from where the airport was all the way to the mall, and it was very far away.
Yeah.
And as I was walking, everybody began to blow their horns, but nobody stopped. Nobody stopped to ask what was going on. Nobody stopped to ask if I needed help. Nobody stopped.
Yeah.
And as I was walking, I began to bawl my eyes out, and I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, this is just like a nightmare that I need to wake up out of. I ended up getting to the mall, and I asked someone, can I use their phone? And I ended up calling his friend, and his friend came and picked me up, because the girl that came to pick me up on the 4th of July, that was his friend's girlfriend. So the friend, which is his friend, he came and picked me up this time with
Mm-hmm.
the girlfriend. And he called him and began to cuss him out and was like, why would you do this to this girl? And he took me to his home, and I stayed there until my stomach grew.
Yeah. The I'm gonna ask you, this is a question, before we move continue, but how can one have sex, for instance, with somebody who consistently abused them? Or is it that it turns out to rape? Are they being raped? Was it a case where you're being raped? Or were you just in love? Or did you not have a say in the matter?
Sometimes you don't have a say in the matter. Like, I didn't have a say in the matter. It's like whenever he wants to, it's just what it was, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes it end up being rape.
Mhm.
Sometimes people I mean, no means no. So sometimes if the person doesn't feel like it, and if you don't feel like it and they feel like it, they feel like because you belong to them, then you have to give it up.
Yeah.
If they're providing for you, then whatever they say goes.
Right, right, right. There had to have come a point when enough was enough. But for you, and based on our conversation before, one would have thought the gun butt would have been it, but it wasn't. Then being pushed out of the vehicle, being pregnant would have been it, but it wasn't. But there came a time when that was it. And that point is what I wanted to share on. That point where you were beaten beyond recognition. You want to share with that one with us?
Yeah. So my enough became I became suicidal before
Yeah.
my became enough. I
Yeah.
became suicidal. I literally used to go inside of the kitchen and looked at the knife to see which one was going to be the winner. And I kept hearing a voice when I was looking at the knife, picking out the knife to see which one I was going to use to take my life.
Yeah.
And I heard, it's not your time yet. It's not your time.
Yeah.
And as I put this thing to my stomach, I was about to, maybe nobody would care about me,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if I leave this earth will be better off without me.
Yeah.
And I put the knife to my stomach and was about to jab myself with it, and I heard, it's not your time yet. I put the knife down, went to bed, and went to sleep. I woke up. um I just got to a place where I just got so upset and angry and was like, I can't do this anymore. I began to pack up his stuff and put all of his stuff in a suitcase, and I put it in the middle of the floor in the house, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
had enough. And he literally took out his knife and began to chase me in the house with the knife. And
Yeah.
I ran into the bathroom so he wouldn't stab me up. And my daughter had to go out there to be the lookout person. She said, Daddy is gone.
Yeah.
And I went to my father's house, and my father, I was there, and for the first night or whatnot, did not knowing that my 3-year-old went to my stepmother and said, I saw my daddy almost stab up my mommy in front of me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He began
Right.
to drive around in the community to look for me. And he pulled up in front of my father's house, and my stepmother said, do you know your 3-year-old told me that she saw you almost kill her mommy in front of her. And he was like, that's not true. That's a lie or whatnot. My stepmother came home and she was like, you're still here? And I was like, I just don't want, I just want to be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to be bothered. I just want to break. But she never told me that's what my 3-year-old said. She just
Mm-hmm.
kept it to herself. And I ended up going home 2 days later.
Yeah.
When I went home, the house was like in a disarray. Everything in the house was like kicked in. I
Mm-hmm.
was there for like a week, and we begin to make up. It's like our makeup is like him not saying sorry, but he go try to bring you somewhere, do something for you. Like that's his makeup to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But a week later, I was watching the news. He was out and he went and got some food. He called and asked, what did I want to eat?
Yeah.
So he said he was at this Jamaican place and he bought some fish. He brought the food in the house, and the news came on. And when he came in the house, the news came on right in time when he came in the house. And this young lady had drove off the bridge with her 4 kids.
Yeah.
When he came in the house and we were watching the news, I began to tell him how I feel. And I
Yeah.
said, this is exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you mean? I said, this is how I feel. He said, why don't you kill yourself and leave my children them alone?
Yeah.
Nobody wants you. Nobody care about you. Why don't you go kill yourself and leave my kids them? Because his thing was every time I would try to tell him how I feel, every time I would try to talk to him, he would always push it under the rug. He didn't want to hear anything. He would
Yeah.
push it under the rug. But this time I could not tell him. I was like, I don't care how you feel. I'm telling you how I feel. A
Yeah.
couple of days ago, I wanted to take my life, but I couldn't not say anything anymore.
Yeah.
And when I saw this lady, I began to see myself because that's exactly how I was feeling. One
Mm-hmm.
of the kids survived and jumped out of the vehicle as the truck began to plummet in the water, in the ocean.
Yeah.
He said my mommy was being abused by our father and she couldn't take it anymore. And that's the reason why she decided to kill me and my siblings.
Wow.
As I began to talk, because I couldn't close my mouth, he got angry. So I
Mm-hmm.
got up and we had like on a dining room table, we had a big metal candle holder with like 6 different
Yeah.
metals on it. And the candles was really big. He began to pick up the candles and throw them at me one by one. After he was finished throwing them at me, when I was saying stop, he wouldn't stop. After he was finished throwing them at me, he picked up the metal candle holder and began to beat me with the metal candle holder. This is iron and wood,
Yeah.
like something really big and heavy. He
Yeah.
began to call me out of my name, calling me B word and all kinds of name. And he said, I'm gonna beat you to the point where nobody will ever want you, nobody will ever recognize you, and nobody will ever tell you that you're beautiful.
Yeah.
He began to beat me. He said, I'm gonna beat you so nobody will ever recognize you. He began to throw these blows to my face. And I began to shield my face with my hand.
Yeah.
This thing got so heavy because he's hitting me with this metal thing. My hands got so weak, I put my hands down. And I was literally standing as a shield to cover my son because my son was 8 months and he was right up under me.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old daughter was in the room sleeping. And he hit me in my face and my head like literally flew back and blood like gushed out of my nose instantly and covered my 8-month-old son on the floor in seconds. And my son was covered in my blood, looking up and wiping his face with my blood.
Oh my
I
God.
looked at the floor and I was like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe because I was asthmatic. I
Yeah.
was like, I can't breathe. He said, no, you should die. I laid on the floor and I was literally choking on my own blood. He had on his Timberland boots and he stepped in my throat and began to turn his foot in my throat. And as I was holding his throat, as I was holding his foot, I was trying to push his foot off of me, but I'm so weak. He began to turn his Timberland boots in my throat and say, you should die. And I'm choking on my blood.
Yeah.
And he said, a matter of fact, tonight is the night you're going to die. He ran into the room to get his gun because he had a licensed gun. He ran into the room to get his gun and it was God that literally made him not find the gun.
Yeah.
I got up off the floor and I ran to the bathroom and I started screaming because there was blood everywhere. And I
Yeah.
was like, in the back of my head, I was like, he said he's going to get his gun. He's going to kill you. So are you going to stay there? Or are you going to leave?
Yeah.
I grabbed my keys and ran out the house in my pajamas and drove down the street because his friends lived like right down the street from us. I
Right.
drove down the street and all of their vehicles was there. I began to beat on the door like I was a police officer. No one came to the door. I was kicking on the door, beating on the door, and nobody came to the door.
Is
It
it that
seemed
they got is it that they got used to the fact that you guys were always fighting and they too got tired of it and just didn't want to get involved anymore? You think that's what happened?
I don't think so because to be honest with you, I never really shared what was going on in the home. They never really seen or really hear. It was only to that point, you said I'm saying, from me staying in their home and him abusing throughout the time of me being abused, they didn't really know, you
Yeah.
know. So it was, I felt like he alerted them that I was coming, or he didn't know where I was going, but he called them and told what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't breathe. At first, I'm breathing out my mouth, and I went back to the vehicle and I came back to the door the second time and began to kick on the door even harder.
Yeah.
Nobody came to the door. When I got back in the vehicle, I'm losing consciousness and I can't breathe. And I began to pray in my mind. And I said, God, if you save me, I will never go back into this relationship again. The
Mm-hmm.
vehicle began to swerve all over the road. But the good thing was that it was the nighttime. So it wasn't that much traffic on the road.
Yeah.
As the vehicle began to swerve all over the road, I could have drove off the bridge. I could have gotten a real bad accident. I don't know when the vehicle stopped, but it was if God himself stopped the vehicle and say enough is enough.
Yeah.
Enough for a police officer to pull me over. When the police officer pulled me over, before he could say license and registration, he saw so much blood inside of the vehicle. He didn't know if I was shot. He didn't know what was going on. He began to comfort me, and begin to call backup. And he was like, please don't go to sleep. Stay with me.
Yeah.
My head slumped over the steering wheel, and he rested my head back and was like, don't go to sleep. He began to rub on my hand and was like, please don't go to sleep. He rest my head back and began to talk to me and
Yeah.
comfort me till when the ambulance came. All I remember was the ambulance came and they cut me out of my clothes and pushed me in the ambulance, and I woke up in ICU with a shield over my face to help me to breathe, tools down my throat, and me strung up to so many wires. I
Mm.
was brought upstairs because they was gonna put me into a room. They brought me upstairs and I was like in between these double doors, and I heard my father's voice. I heard my father, my stepmother, and my aunt, but I heard my father saying to the nurse, I'm looking for Stacey Harvey.
Yeah.
The nurse said, we don't know anybody by that name because I'm Jane Doe. I ran for my life. And she said, they're going to bring this young lady in the room so you can look and see if that's her. And he turned and looked on the bed where I was laying. And he looked and was like, my God, who did this to this girl? And he began to, like, he was angry, not knowing that it was me, his child, laying there lifeless. He,
Yeah.
I was unrecognized.
Stacey, ah, this is when I spoke to you, I remember crying just listening to you because you had to endure so much. The turning point came that at that point, is that what that's how it did it is that how did he end up in prison as a result of it? What happened right at that moment in terms of all of that? Everybody's now aware of what he's doing. What happened?
So at that moment, I made a decision as I lay there in the hospital because I'd never been to the hospital. As much as he beat me up, as much as he did to me, as much black eyes and busted lip he did, I never went to the hospital. I stayed home and healed on my own. But this time made it worse because I lay there and saw my two children flash before my eyes. And I began to cry and bawl my eyes out. And I said, God, if you save me from this, I will never go back into this relationship. I said, God, I need you in this time, in this now. And I was like, I don't know how you're going to do it, what you're going to do, but I need you now.
Yeah.
And I began to see my children, because I was like, I want to see my children get older. I want to become a grandma. I want to see my children go to college. I want to see my children get married. I want to see all of these things for my children. I want to become who you call me to be. And this is not it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, this is not it, God. And as I began to talk, I felt a peace that I've never felt before. Like a peace that just came over me
Yeah.
that I never felt before. And it was just like, it felt like everything is going to be okay at that moment. Like everything was going to be okay. And I didn't have to worry about nothing in that moment. It was like the peace that God said that surpasseth all understanding
Yeah.
that fell on me.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital for 7 days. And when I came out of the hospital, it was like I stepped back into a horror movie, because every door in my house was kicked in. It was like you stepped into a horror film.
Yeah.
Each one of the doors was kicked in. There was blood stains all over the carpet, blood stains everywhere, from where I fell on the ground to where I trailed to the bathroom. It was blood stains everywhere. And my daughter, even though she was sleeping, she remembered these things, because she said, you know, my daddy did that to my mommy, and she wasn't even awake, but she saw all of the beating, all the abuse. And children are sponges.
Yes.
They remember things. So I begin to rip up the ABC rug on the floor and begin to place them on the carpet to cover the blood stains so they wouldn't see it. And I was like, God, I'm losing my mind in here. I don't know what to do. I don't have no finances. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but you got to get me out of here, because this is it.
Yeah.
And the voice said, go back to the place where he went to go put the application in for the apartment. He never got that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up getting an apartment, because remember, my credit was messed up really bad.
Right.
So go back to that place and apply for that apartment where he never got approved. And when I went back to that place, I said, okay, I'm doing what you said to do. I went back to that place and I applied for the apartment. And I said, God, I'll leave it in your hands. The very next day, the lady called me and said I was approved. And I said, what you say? She said I was approved. I ended up moving from out of that apartment. I was like, I don't know how the money's going to come, but you said to do this. And the money came.
Yeah.
Because I had to let go of everything, trusting and totally surrendering everything to him.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving to that place. And when I moved there, I literally told him, you cannot bring none of your furniture into my house. But his way to try to worm his way in, he would say, if I'm not staying there, I'm not paying no rent. I said, I could care less if you want to pay any rent or not, because this time it was me solely dependent on God. Whether he paid any rent or not, you got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That
uh-huh.
No, I said that was my last straw.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting locked up, but
Yeah.
not because of the situation, but what he was involved in. He ended up getting locked up. And
Here's a question. Did you ever press charges?
No, I never pressed charges.
I'm sure somebody wants to know why. Why not?
Why I never pressed charges? One, I was afraid that he was going to come after me to kill me or my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that he probably wouldn't have did it to his children, because he loved his children, in front of him and behind him. He loved his children unconditionally, and I would never take that from him.
Yeah.
I was afraid for my safety that if I pressed charges, he would have came after me.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why I did not press charges.
Yeah. Stacey, you shared definitely the layers for which women stay in abusive relationship. It's the financial support. It's the economic support. It's all the various support. But you've survived that, and you are now engaged in a ministry that helps battered women Tell us a little about that ministry that you are now a part of. Is it a foundation? It's something that I know is your baby. Share with us what that is.
So it's my ministry is called My Heart is in His Hands Ministry.
My heart is yours.
No, My Heart is in His Hands Ministry,
Ministries. Okay.
which is God's ministry.
Yes.
How this ministry came about was one day God told me, He came to me and He began to minister to me. And He said, how about you give me a broken heart? And I said, what do you mean? He said, how about you give me a broken heart, put it in my hands and allow me to heal it?
Yeah.
And I said, I thought I did. He said, no, you never did. I need you to put your broken heart in my hands and allow me to heal it.
Yes.
And I said, okay, God. He said, all of those things that happened to you, it wasn't to kill you. It wasn't to take you out.
Yeah.
It wasn't for you to be bitter towards me. I know all of those things happen and it hurt painfully,
Yeah.
but I allow it to happen because of what's going on in the nation. I'm calling you to a nation because so many people have gone through the same thing that you have endured.
Yeah.
So many people lost their lives and never even got a chance to even say anything, never even got a chance to say, come out of it and save yourself. So many people. But because I chose you for this moment, and why I chose you because when it's all said and done, you will give my name glory, because all the glory will go back to me.
Yeah.
And I said, what? He said, yes, I'm giving you a ministry called My Heart is in His Hands. And I started crying. And he said, yeah, I'm giving you this ministry because you put your broken heart in my hands and allow me to heal it. Now it's time for me to send you out to the nation, for you to help draw the nation to me and to let their broken heart be healed through this ministry.
Wow. How do you reach out? Well, wow. So the ministry actually, how do you find these women that are broken? Is it that you have something out there online? Do you have an establishment set up? How do they find you, or how do you find them?
So the first time I started, God allowed me to have a conference. The first conference was in Jamaica. I sold my vehicle, I sold my Lexus and went to Jamaica to do His work. Sometimes it would sound crazy. They'd be like, kind of craziness. I'm not doing that. But if God say go, you got to go.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my daughter, like 9 months pregnant with my younger daughter when I went to Jamaica to start this conference. And literally women begin to be delivered. The very first time before I even had a conference, I would listen to the radio, like the gospel station. And this one particular day, it was something playing on a radio station and they was talking about domestic violence. It was like a panel of people talking, and it was men and women. And the men began to share how their mothers was abused, and the women as well. And they were saying that they was having this big event and they want everybody to come. So I wrote it down like 5 o'clock in the morning. I jumped off the bed and wrote it down and I said, I'm going to go to that event. And the first time I went to that event, I went there, but how God told me how my healing is going to come. He said, the minute you begin to speak about what happened to you, that's when your healing will come.
Wow.
I would say, and I would just start bawling. I'm like, how I'm going to share my stories? Embarrassing. It's hurtful. I can't share this with anyone. He said, that's how your healing is going to come. He said, the minute you keep talking about it, it's like every day as time progresses, when you begin to share your story with other people, remember, this is something embarrassed. I never really shared with nobody.
Yeah.
And he said, as time progresses, the tears will get lesser and lesser and lesser till they're no more.
Bless God.
And that's exactly what happened. And this day I went to this event and they had it on the radio station. And I said to the lady, I would like to share my story.
Yeah.
He said, really? No problem. So She said, if I'm too busy, just call me, just come in and nudge me and call me. And it was about the time when they were about to share, their lunch and stuff like that. And she said, I have a young lady here that would like to share her story. But before she put me on the radio, I was on the radio live and I began to share my story on the radio. Then she called me into the conference hall and all of the people sat there and she said she would like to share her story. And when I began to share my story, I literally saw everybody in there bawling. I try to look up and look everywhere else because everywhere I look, I see people crying. So I'm like, like, give me strength because I don't want to cry either. After I was finished sharing my story, so many people came up to me and hugged me and was like, that was my story. You just spoke my story. You just told what happened to me. I didn't know how, but you just said everything that I was going through. And that's when it started. And no, I said, and that's when it started.
And that's what I tell persons. The mantra for this, my program is uniquely me is uniquely you, because you're representing so many other women who've been through what you've been through and worse. Some may not be as severe, but some may just be the same measure or worse. But they're afraid to come out. They don't know how to, right? They're looking for a safe place to unburden. They're looking for somebody who will listen to hear, what they've been through. And I'm happy that God gave you such a ministry. And it may sound away, but it's true and the Lord gives each of us the measure of faith because he knows what you endured, maybe I couldn't, right? But you had to endure it because you are now becoming the outlet for a number of women. We're about to wrap up, Stacey. But I'm sure there's somebody listening to this story of yours, and they're saying, oh my God, I so need to reach this woman. I so need help. And even if they can't reach you, they need help. I want you to give us just 3 points three things you would say to those women that's going through that situation, and then tell them where they can find you.
I would say, don't give up. Don't give up. Trust God. Why I say those things is because when we look at Bible, let's go back to the Bible. The Bible said Joseph had 11 brothers, and he was hated by all 11 of his brothers. He had to endure something in order for him to get to something. Sometimes we don't understand what God is doing in the midst of the situation. And Joseph never understood what God was doing. When I read the Bible, I revert to myself as Joseph. I think about me being a Joseph because I had to endure all these trials, all these obstacles, all these things, but yet still there is a purpose on the inside and I have to get to it.
Yes.
And in order for me to get to it, you have to go through the valley. And sometimes the valley experience doesn't feel too well. Sometimes you're going to have some fiery darts thrown at you. Sometimes you're going to be into some uncomfortable position and some uncomfortable situation where you might have people hating you, where you might not being able to even have a good night's rest. You might not have food. You might not have none of those things.
Yeah.
But throughout it all, God was always there in spite of. Sometimes even when you don't hear him speak, he's always there.
Yeah.
And that one thing I must say, that when it all came down to it, God was able to turn Joseph's situation around. No matter how hard it was, no matter what they did to him, Joseph had to meet the baker and the butler. And even when one of them dismissed him and he was standing on the right hand of Pharaoh, he still had to go back because God only give you an assignment that's specifically for you and you alone. Yeah. And sometimes you don't know that God put that job in that position just for you.
Yeah.
But we have to walk in obedience to it. It is hurtful. And I can't say that it was pleasant. I can't say that it was nice, not at all. but every blow that I took, God covered me. I don't
Mm,
look nothing like my situation. Even with my missing tooth at all, I can smile today
come
because
on.
He lives in me today. So
Yeah.
I would say trust God in all of it and lean not unto your own understanding in all your ways. Acknowledge Him and He will direct your path.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Stacey. Where can we find you? Where can persons find you?
So I'm on social media. And my ministry is My Heart is in His Hands Ministry on Facebook. And on Instagram, it's My Heart, the number one. You can find me as Stacy Harvey also on Facebook, or you can find me on Instagram through Handle with Grace, which is my events and all of those things that I do as an entrepreneur. My phone number as well is 240-360-8775. And you can reach me on WhatsApp if you put in the number and so forth. But I
Okay.
really thank you so much um, for your genuineness. I thank you so much for you being just you and the great work that you continue to do by allowing God to use you because your form and the way how you begin to minister to people because you're literally ministering to people as you're speaking to us. You make us feel comfort and you make us feel secure. And I want to say thank you for that. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. I was here saying to myself, she's about to make me cry my heart out now. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I receive it, and that's an answer, actually, believe it or not, you're definitely a prophetess. Because I've been saying to the Lord, is uniquely me ministering, Is it ministering? Is it bringing God the glory that he needs to get? So I thank you so much for that. I bless you
Thank you.
for having come and shared so openly. Um, Stacey, not a lot of women are willing to come out and talk about what they've been through. But you have done so. And as I listen to you, I'm looking at the beauty of Jesus all over you, right? If you didn't talk about a missing teeth, ain't nobody would know that there's a missing teeth or tooth, but God has been faithful. He has beautified you with meekness. He has turned your sorrows into joy. He has given you the oil of gladness. And I'm happy that he has blessed you with a ministry now that's reaching women all over and allowing them to know that there is hope. What's happening now, tomorrow, change is coming. So
Yeah.
thank you
And
so.
the one thing is that those two things that I've gone through, being homeless and being a survivor of domestic violence, those are the two main things that steer to my heart. And I do a lot as far as in the community. I feed the homeless. I've been to Africa where I fed people in the community. I ministered on African platforms. I've been all over the world and traveled and done those things like, on people's form
Yeah.
and minister about domestic violence and minister about homelessness. And had it not been for God, I didn't know that I would even built for this, but
Yeah.
He know what He built me for.
Yeah. You weren't built to break, my darling. Hallelujah. We bless the
Amen.
Lord. Thank you so much. Definitely. I'm going to invite my guests, of course, to go check you out. And of course, if there's a woman listening right now, you've been through trauma and you're still living in it. Domestic abuse is one of those common things, and you're one of those enduring it. You're going to make it. I'm telling you right now, you're going to make it. Stacey's here as proof that you can make it. So reach out to her. You're going to see her contact details running across the screen. So make sure you reach out to her. It's going to be in the chat, in the comment box, I should say. So make sure you reach out to her to receive that help that you need. So thanks again, Stacey. Thank
Thank you.
you. All
So
right. So, guys, you've heard it. It's another episode of Uniquely Me with Simone Stewart. And my God, there wasn't much for me to say in this episode. It was more about listening, and just listening to what some of our women are going through and are enduring. But you know what? They're survivors. They are unique, and God is great. Let me tell you, uniquely me. We don't just focus on the challenges and struggles. We focus too on the victories and the triumphs. And here's a story that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Feel free, guys. Make sure you're reaching out. Go check Stacy out. Or maybe you know somebody that's going through the exact situation she's been through. Maybe you're a neighbor and you've been hearing the abuse taking place next door. Go just slip them Stacy's number or her handle, and Stacy will take it from there. Or of course, you can reach out to us, guys. We're only too happy to help, of course, right? So thanks again, guys. We will do this again next week. Another exciting episode comes next week. Who knows who will be on next? But thanks again. Take care, guys, and make sure you're subscribed. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Uniquely Me with Simone Stewart. Remember, uniquely me is uniquely you.